Welcome to the Mind Cemetery, where the paranoia about the paranormal comes to rest every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here, exclusively on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Heard around the world online at uprntalkradio.com, on FM 107.7 New Orleans, as well as 105.9 in Pass Christian, Mississippi. As always, we will do our best to delve into the unexplained, weird, and sometimes creepy topics you won't hear in your local news. Like what you hear on the show? Then like the Mind Cemetery Facebook page and follow at Mind Cemetery on Twitter. If you want to check out the show on your time, download the Mind Cemetery off iTunes and at soundcloud.com/UPRN. For all of the UFO Paranormal Radio Network's shows, visit mindcemetery.net for info on upcoming guests, weird news, award-winning blogs, show archives, and of course, the ever-present UFO Stalker. Join the discussion live in the UFO Paranormal Radio Network chat room on Pal Talk, or call into the show at 1-504-273-7379. Welcome to the Mind Cemetery. You're listening to uprntalkradio.com, also known as the United Public Radio Network, on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Just for a few hours, that is. But other than that, it's usually, UFO Paranormal Radio Network talk and people that come to listen to us. Thank you for joining us, albeit a few minutes late. And with our shaky start there, we shake out the bugs early. And we will have on later on as a guest Karen King, who is the admin over at the official MUFON Facebook page. Karen King is the administrator there, and she puts up with my nonsense, so I figured I'd just have her on and talk about MUFON, UFO paranormal topic, we'll share stories, and fun times will be had, I assure you. And as always, you will learn something that you probably won't hear on any other interview with Karen, because I like to go and discuss things maybe not related to UFO paranormal topics, so you get to learn a little bit more about the people that are actually in the field out there, online, on radio, and all that good stuff. Go a little deeper besides here the usual spiel that you will hear in other places. Get a little more personalized at least. Maybe not so much personal, but Karen is also a big fan of football, so sit down and strap it in, because Tuesday nights I do the sports thing, and we may talk a little bit about that. And she is a Packer fan, I found out, and I am a Bear fan, so automatic cat versus dog. But it just so happens the Bears have been the cat lately and been getting it taken to them rather regularly. So we'll talk about that. But what I want to hit here, as usual in the beginning of the show, is a little bit of the strange news here, and hit some topics that probably you don't hear all the time, or maybe you've missed online or on other shows that you've been listening to and talking with your friends on the outside there. If you have friends, maybe you don't have friends. Maybe your friends live inside that magical box you're listening to me through right now. And that's fine, because that happens. Those friends are better anyway, because you can shut them off whenever you'd like, right? Let's see what kind of news we can get ourselves into real quick. I know Joe is sending invites to Karen to accept and all that good stuff, and get her going on Skype. So in the meantime, a little bit of news action this week. This week there is a lot of astronomical type things going on, right? You like those technical terms? If anything else, I'm a consummate scientist, if you haven't figured that out yet. Blood Moon is coming here Wednesday, October 8th, in the wee morning hours there, about 5:15 a.m. Eastern, with it beginning at 6:25 a.m. Eastern is the highlight, I guess, is when you'll be able to see the Blood Moon, so you can go ahead and get out there. Also, starting just after nightfall on Wednesday, October 8th, And again on Friday, October 10th, you will be able to see the Draconid meteor shower. So it's basically named after the constellation you'll have to be looking at to see this meteor shower. So go ahead and try to find Draco in the night sky there right after sundown and give it a look. Try to get some binoculars and, of course, head to a clear field where there's not a whole lot of that there light pollution that you may be experiencing in your neck of the woods, nape of the way, as they say. Back in my old hometown, it wasn't really a problem, but here in Raleigh, I kind of have difficulty seeing that kind of thing here without going out in the sticks. So, and I don't really like going out into the sticks of North Carolina, actually. I could kind of do without that, because it seems like 15 minutes outside of town, it gets kind of weird. And when I mean weird, I really mean stupid. So, and they look at me funny because I speak English, and, well, maybe not so good, as most of the listeners could probably attest to. That's funny you mentioned some Bigfoot there. And if you are listening online and you're sitting in front of your computer, you can go ahead and join the UPRN Talk Radio Pal Talk chat room and check out what the other listeners are saying and doing, and so you know when I'm responding or talking to someone, that's probably them. I'm not just having magical discussions by myself, but I have been known to do that in the past. This time, at least I'm not. Cop's in there helping me out, and he's mentioned some Bigfoot, and I got a little Bigfoot news too. You know, I always like to touch all the bases here in the news. So that's what you got you can look forward to this week in astronomical events. There, the little blood moon and the Draconid meteor shower going on the 8th and the 10th. So in the early evenings there. So go ahead and check it out if you'd like to see that kind of thing. It's kind of nice to see it. And, you know, on another point, when it comes to these kind of things, these astronomical events that happen, I suggest that if you're a UFO enthusiast, guy, girl, person, fan, or even, dare I say, researcher, aspiring, of course, right? Go ahead and check it out so you know what it looks like. And that way you can start learning the differences of what's actually up in the air in the night sky. So just help you out a little bit in the future, and you could see, and you may say, well, I know what a meteor looks like and all that. Well, maybe you do, and maybe you don't. Give it a look anyway. It's free. So there's also that. Free entertainment. Who can't get behind that, right? And, a little bit of Bigfoot news for you. I know everyone was clamoring for it here. I see on Bigfoot Evidence here at .blogspot.com. I do believe I've had people on from there. Not sure. Done it for a few years. Can't remember everybody that's been on. Sorry. They've got a little article up here that is posted about Les Stroud, who, as you know, has gotten into the Bigfoot hunting, or at least tracking and documenting business, as they say in the hood. No, I'm just kidding. So he has come up with a new and innovative way to record the Sasquatch, and it's not a trail cam. It's not an audio recording of any sort. It's actually a grouse camera. I like it. I like the name. I like the term grouse mainly because I'm a Three Stooges fan, and there was an episode where they always say, "Look at the grouse," and they'd kick each other in the rear, and hilarities ensue as usual. But he has come up with a grouse cam, so basically it's a fake bird to try to fool the Bigfoot. Pay no attention to that blinking light in my feathers, Bigfoot. I'm watching you with my good eye, which happens to be a camera. So, so evidently they've got new kinds of game cams out there that he is trying to set up and get going where it looks like actual animals out there. But if you're any kind of hunter, I think that you might know that something's fishy when you're walking around in the woods and you see a game animal of any sort, and all of a sudden it's frozen, and you think, oh, time to get my shot. And then you say, I haven't seen it even flinch yet, or go back into scavenging for nutrition, or I haven't even seen it try to make a run for it, which, natural selection has bred them to be fairly smart these days. And I know, and that comes into direct contradiction because there are so many deer and all that. Just because they're overpopulated doesn't mean that, Darwin hasn't gone through and done his job, or at least the theory, that is, right, to get them to run for the hills when they see the white man, or, that fun stuff. So we'll be bringing Karen on right now, and which she says she's just an hour away from the mothership, so look out. Could be trouble. For Joe, not me specifically, of course. I keep my hands clean of those kind of problems and trouble. I don't like trouble. You know me. And if I had a camera, you'd see me winking and crossing my fingers and holding it behind my back at this point, because I love trouble. It's fun. But also up there, besides Les Stroud's grouse camera and his innovation there, you also get a little video from Cliff Barackman, not to be confused with Barackman Obama, camouflaging a game camera to help it from being detected from a Sasquatch. I guess that would be the old technology then, if actually the grouse cam does take hold. So we shall see if that ever takes hold, and who knows what the price point is when he actually brings it to market after testing it and all that kind of stuff, because of course it has other applications than just Bigfoot hunting or spotting or tracking or anything like that on trails. I could see this being used by plenty of hunters out there to scout out a location. We'll look for that coming down the pipe here probably in another year or so. Some fun stuff here for you coming up at Halloween, because we are in October, right? Evidently they are bringing back Elvira, the Mistress of the Dark, for 13 nights. At least Hulu is. And you could check her out with some classic movies there. And I do press you to go check her out, especially if you're a male in the audience. But anyway, I digress. You'd be hard-pressed to find a lot of people that don't know who she is, actually, and a lot of us actually grew up watching that, and there were many types of hosts of late-night horror flicks, B-movies, and all that kind of stuff out there. I think the latest, or the longest-running that I can remember, there was a Sammy Terry out of Indianapolis. I know my mother was a big fan of that. She was a big fan of horror films and scaring the Jesus out of me, to get it going, to get me roused up right before bed. Thanks, Mom. No, I'm just kidding. My mom's not alive anymore, so I'm sure she's haunting me as we speak. Let's put it that way. She's good for that. So, Elvira will be on there on Hulu for you to check out. It begins October 19th, so keep that in mind to check that out if you do subscribe to Hulu. I subscribe to Netflix. Hulu we used to also be a part of. I'm not sure if we subscribe to that as well. I'll have to check out and see if we do still have a subscription up and running. So, it doesn't say which movies will be featured or anything like that. It just 13 nights there. The usual ramp up to Halloween type stuff. And like I was saying, if you're a fan of that kind of genre, old classic horror movies, B-movies, hosts like Elvira, a.k.a. Cassandra Peterson, then you might remember, if you're in the Midwest, Sammy Terry out of Indianapolis. And in Chicago, there was a man by the name of Sven Gulli, who was played by Rich Koz, and that's K-O-Z, who did it for years, and I remember watching those shows. A lot of rubber chicken throwings, and I guess he was some sort of vampire. He'd be hiding and doing a lot of slapstick comedy and stuff like that. Rich Koz was really good for that kind of stuff. He was fun to grow up and listen to there, and watch him on Sunday afternoons and all that kind of stuff. That's when a lot of that would go on. Sunday afternoon movies, and you get a lot of the Time Machine and that kind of stuff being played there. So go ahead and check that out if you have Hulu. And I do believe we finally got patched through to Karen, and I won't let you hold on too long there, Karen. I know you're in the wings, so to speak. So we'll get cranking here soon. I'll get through a couple more of these little stories here. One thing that I did post on UFO Updates, which is a Facebook page that I frequent, and a lot of folks frequent, actually, and to its credit, I'm not sure who runs it, to be honest with you. I can't think off the top of my head, and if I look, it'll just be some dead air. So anyway, I posted this story from NASA that is looking for social media types to witness and preview Orion's first flight test launch in Florida. So they're giving out 150 credentials to a 2-day event, December 3rd and 4th, to cover the first launch of the Orion spacecraft on Exploration Flight Test 1. The NASA social is expected to culminate with the launch of the Orion on the 4th at 7:05 a.m., of which they will be you will get to view the launch of the Delta IV heavy rocket carrying the Orion spacecraft, hear first-hand accounts of the mission and research goals from NASA engineering teams and around the agency and other organizations, get a behind-the-scenes tour of the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. There we go, that's nice. Get an inside look of the vehicle assembly building. That's nice, too. Be able to get a look at these things. Tour Orion's production facility. All very nice things. Go inside the Launch Control Center. That'd be cool to see. Meet and interact with astronauts and representatives from NASA and other organizations. Now, that right there is probably number 2 on the list to seeing the actual launch and the rocket and the Orion spacecraft itself. In my opinion, that would be my top thing, is be able to get a hold of some astronauts and ask them questions. And of course it says meet members of NASA's social media team. Registration actually began today at 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday. Closes at 5 p.m. on Sunday the 19th. Participants will be selected from online registrations, and I'm really interested in that because it's rare for, as I like to call him, Joe Shit the Ragman, to be able to get this kind of opportunity. But it shows a direction for NASA. Actually, it's showing their interaction with people to gauge interest in things. There's also something that I found interesting when I was scanning through here and reading it about the facts, the frequently asked questions and the who, what, where, and why, and the beginning applications and all that kind of stuff. Some of the requirements, of course, I think, of course, this show or me and would qualify, and so would any other radio show actually would qualify for this thing. All it asks is that you actively use multiple social media networking platforms. So basically, Facebook and Twitter. Okay? You could use Facebook, Twitter, and then whatever venue you spit out your podcast, radio show, SoundCloud, iTunes, Podgarden, all that kind of stuff. So there is definitely, there we go. We qualify for that. Regularly produce new content that features multimedia elements. Well, okay, got it. Potential to reach a large number of people using digital platform. Again, covered. And so would a lot of people. Here's what caught me. Reach a unique audience, separate and distinctive from traditional news media and or NASA audience. There it is, folks. That's the high sign. That right there tells you what they're going after. Good, bad, or ugly have yet to be determined, of course, but definitely something that I would like to mill over with Karen here in a few minutes, so give her a little heads up there to check out the nasa.gov social Orion flight test plans there, because I think we all know what unique audience means. It's alternative media. It's us. It's you, me. It's everybody else who has a show and Twitter account and Facebook page and all that kind of good stuff that discusses these kind of things. Albeit most of them don't want to really cover the real aspects of what front of house is showing us, so to speak, I guess. I know a lot of people believe in secret NASA programs and all that kind of stuff, which could very possibly be going on. The wool gets pulled over our eyes regularly and quite easily. So I saw that ability to reach a unique audience and said, yep, I know what we're doing there. They're going grassroots is what they're doing. Going grassroots to get interest cranked up, at least at first glance. On Facebook, on the Inspire page, which is the local meetup paranormal research group there, and I talked about the recent experiences in the house, and then when I flew it by my wife, I got some confirmation that I wasn't expecting, especially out of her. So we'll definitely talk about that here coming up soon and share those stories with you. Everybody's favorite exo-politician, Michael Salla, is back, and he has put out some pictures here saying there's a UFO in a crater, and it's from a picture in 1968, and basically it doesn't look like a UFO, but it just looks like some, a pile of dirt or sand or whatever moon debris it is up there. But if it has Michael Salla attached to it, do you expect any less? It's going to be a UFO or a base or an alien home world, or it's one of the above, and God knows he's going to trumpet that. He says it's a 10-mile spacecraft and 60-mile highway discovered in 1968 moon photo. So that's always interesting. And I've got... Finally, I'm going to hit the Loch Ness part of this. It looks like the Icelandic Commission has recently ruled the video of mythological Loch Ness sea monster captured in 2012 to be authentic. So you might remember the ice snake or serpent or something like that was out there that they show, and it kind of looks like an ice flow. And my thing is, if you're going to see these kind of things, and I know it's Iceland, but hopefully somebody could shoot it and pull it out of that water and actually show us what the hell it is instead of just getting a video of it. And yes, I'm that guy that also says we should be shooting Bigfoot. And if it just so happens to be a person in a suit faking Bigfoot, well, you probably shouldn't have been faking Bigfoot with all the shows out there trapping Bigfoot, chasing Bigfoot, hunting Bigfoot, skinning Bigfoot, eating Bigfoot. No, I don't know. Bigfoot anything. So, you kind of deserve what you get in those endeavors right there. A little instant karma for those folks that like to get out there and hoax it. So, we are about 30 minutes into it, and I have to bring in Karen at this point. Hello, Karen. How are you?
How are you, Joe?
Not too bad. Hopefully it didn't make you wait too long and bore you too much with those stories there. And as I explained to everybody, you are the administrator for the official MUFON Facebook page. And that comes with its own set of problems, I guess. On a daily basis. It's a lot of babysitting I see in your day. And I will admit guilty. Okay, well, you've probably had to put me in check. I can't remember.
Well, Joe, I mean, it's what it is. I mean, it's a huge arena, and there's so many people with different belief systems and everything. But my main job is I have to kind of keep the peace. We're going on 8,000 people. We've got almost a small city here.
Yep. Oh yeah. My hometown was about 8,000 people, so. That definitely qualifies there.
Right. And so, I mean, it's interesting. It's very interesting. And I tell people, I'm not a ufology, I'm not a scientist. I've had my own experience.
Sure.
But
Cool.
I'm good PR. I'm a good people person. I love people. It
There
must
you
be
go.
that
helps.
It must be that Southern charm.
Right?
Right.
There you go. It's got to help. It's got to help a
Sure.
little bit. So, that probably is a great place to start with our own experiences. And if you don't mind sharing that with everybody here, and we can kind of jump off from there, and away we'll go.
Okay. To be honest, my dad believed, and of course I did too as a child because, he told me that. But as I got older, I got a little bit agnostic because as I got older, I would see the paperbacks and the material, and I thought, well, this is just kind of tacky-looking junk.
Yeah.
It's that junk science, as I call it.
Sure.
And but back in 1990, my daughter, who was 12 at the time, and I were at the house by ourselves. And this was in Ripley, Tennessee.
Okay.
We had about 18 head of horses. We competed, and we bought and sold and traded.
Busy work right there.
Yeah.
And hard work.
Yeah, it was really. And
not easy.
Well, my deal was getting babysitter horses for novices and women and kids and stuff like that. But anyway, it was getting late. It was in the fall. But it had been warm that day, and I had cut the grass that morning because, it's getting up, and then you take the grass clippings and throw them to the horses. So, and that's an important part of the story. That night, my ex-brother-in-law had this big Great Dane, and he started barking and barking and barking. So I told Lindy, I said, now, I got to go out here and check these horses because a horse is kind of an accident waiting to happen, running into barbed wire or whatever, and you don't know what could be out there. So I got my flashlight, and I got on out there, and I went out to where the feedlot thing was, and they were all huddled up in a corner kind of. And I looked over to my right, and this dog Deacon, I'm on a radio show. This dog Deacon, he's barking his head off. And
and just so I can interject, I'll just interject real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but for everybody who has not been around a Great Dane, I grew up with a neighbor that had one. He used to name them like Thor and like Greek god names, right? And this sucker got a hold of my forearm, and I'm 6'2", pushing 300 pounds at the time, and yeah, it scared the hell out of me, this dog. And I'm usually not from a family that was scared of dogs because my great-grandfather used to raise Dobermans down in the Marion, Indiana area there. So, and the bark that you're describing is a very throaty, deep,
right,
woo,
yes.
And I know it's kind of funny for me to mock the sound, but I have to kind of give a little context to it. It's very booming and it's rattling to you to hear these kind of things. You will jump,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And, you got that many horses, you got a lot of money in there. And, of course, I'm an animal lover. You don't want anything to happen to them. And so I went on out there, like I said, and back behind the house was a barbed wire fence that separated our property from a neighbor's pasture. And he's sitting out there looking up at the sky, barking. And I'm like, what is wrong? Come on now, come on. There's nothing out here. What are you looking at? Well, I finally got him calmed down, and I went around to my house and my ex-brother-in-law's house were just adjacent to one another. And he had like a low wooden front porch. And so I sat down to have a smoke because I didn't smoke in the house. And I looked up. Something caught my eye. And, I love to look at the stars. I do that. And I noticed this patch in the east, kind of, because Ripley, Tennessee lies along the Mississippi River. I look back and I see this patch of stars, and I thought, oh, man, it's cool. It starts moving. The whole field of stars starts moving, and I'm thinking, well, what is this about? And as it moved, it looked like it was further away than it really was. And then all of a sudden, it's settling over my house. And it went dark. It went totally dark. But I could see, when my eyes adjusted to the dark, because I didn't have my flashlight on it, I could see this outline. It was basically rectangular. But it had these flanges, that's what I call them, off to the side, kind of like looking at an aircraft carrier deck upside down. You know, it's got these, I call them little ears or something off to the side.
Yeah, like flaps?
Flaps, yeah.
Kind of? Okay.
Yeah. And it was silent. It was quiet. And, of course, at that time, I don't know how to describe it. You know, you're scared.
Yes.
You know aircraft. You know Air Force aircraft. But this thing was wild looking. And it just settled down. I was like, how could it look so far away but be so close? It settles down over my house, my ex-brother-in-law's house. And
now, did it cover like both at the same time,
yes,
like that big? Or?
It was huge.
Okay.
It was.
I didn't know if it moved from one to the other.
This was gigantic. Yeesh. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
So it's blacking out the sky, basically.
Man, look, I've seen the SR-71 take off from Kadena Air Force Base too many times, and this was like, oh my God, what is this? And I'm a very curious person, and I mean, I can remember my heart was all up in my chest, and I'm like, oh dear God, what the hell is this? I mean, that's just the way I thought.
Sure.
But, and it was quiet. Well, now, as it settled in, all of a sudden, like I said, I could make out the shape, the outline. And it was several stories high, too. And it was pretty surreal, Joe. It was very surreal. And I thought, okay. And then it started making this humming noise. And these lights came on that looked like can lights underneath it, recessed lights. And they were real soft.
Okay.
And
yes,
all of a sudden, after this humming noise, I could feel it in my hair, my teeth, my bones. It was not a loud humming sound, but this low frequency sound that, you know, like these big boom things, you know. And then I didn't have any fear. I did not have any fear at all. And I started walking up underneath it. I thought, what is this? And I looked around, and then I just had this kind of, I don't know, it was just a strange feeling. Really, really, really strange. So this humming got more intense and more intense until it was just permeating me. And then that stopped. The lights went out. It went dark. I even have drawings and illustrations of this.
Okay.
And I started walking toward what I would say was the front of it. You know, it just kind of looked all the same, but, you know, the forward part. And like I said, it got real dark, and then all of a sudden, this blazing bluish yellow white light comes on in the front, and it spots to the left, to the right, to the back. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they see me. They see me. Whatever this is, they see me. But at the same time, I was still kind of in this euphoric-like stage. And then that went out after a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing it kind of floating off. I mean, this thing was hovering.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing the size of a parking lot hovers, okay?
Yeah,
exactly. This is just crazy. And what was really crazy was that I hadn't run off screaming in terror.
Yes.
Because,
that's interesting.
Because it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That was in my brain, but at the same time, it was okay. It was okay. So I saw it move off toward the Mississippi River to the west, because we lived on top of the bluffs. We called it the bottomlands down in there because of the way it is. I mean, you could look it up. Ripley, Tennessee, they have a lot of farmland down in the bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
And it was moving off. And then the next thing I knew, I'm standing in the kitchen door. And I'm kind of in a fugue state. I mean, it was like, what am I doing here? Everything. And my daughter is like, Mom, are you okay? You told me to stay in. I said, huh? She said, Mom, you've been out there for several hours. I said, no, I haven't. I said, I've been out there just a few. No, Mom, you went out at 11. It's 1 o'clock now. And then I just kind of, I don't know. I said, well, it's okay. I had to kind of comfort her. I said, everything is okay. And I fell off in the bed. Okay, here's where the grass clippings. I woke up the next morning, and I was still in this kind of groggy state. But I immediately remembered seeing the craft. And when I got out of bed, I looked down, and there's grass clippings all over in the bed. So I knew I had been outside. It wasn't a dream. I know it wasn't a dream. I know how I checked on our horses, but I was still in this kind of strange state. And I have found out since then a lot of people have had that altered state of reality, kind of a dream state.
Yes.
And I don't remember. I will tell anybody up front and now. I am not going to say they did anything to me or whatever, because I don't have any bad feelings about it. No horrible memories. Nothing like that. In fact, actually, I had a positive experience. I felt better about everything. I felt more aware. I just felt good. But that day after, I slept most of the day. I do not sleep during the day. I'm up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Always have been.
Yep.
But so I got up and got Lindy off to school and just fell off in the bed. I just felt exhausted. And I'll be honest, Joe. She said, Mom, what happened out there? What'd you see? Nothing. Because I didn't want to scare her. And I held that for 20 years almost. I would not tell anybody. No. You don't talk about stuff like that. And she kept telling me. She would ask me, year after year, Mom, what really happened? And when she was grown, I told her.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And she believed me. She says, Mom, I know something weird happened because you just weren't yourself. And she said, what do you think really happened out there? I said, Lindy, I have no idea. But I believe to this day that there are different ways. You know, you hear about people with implants and stuff. Well, I used to be really agnostic about that, too, until I've really talked to some people. You know, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about some high-end people, okay?
Sure.
And I'm not agnostic anymore. it's kind of a learning experience. But my deal is, I believe they used, on me, light and sound to get me into a calm mode. Because most people would not be calm looking at something like that or curious.
Correct. And that's what interests me.
Well, they would have just dirtied their pants. And I know in any other circumstance, I probably would have too. But when the humming came on, it was just this pleasant feeling all over. And I have often wondered if they know how to get in our head and, open pathways to things. And they have different methods. And I don't know. I don't really know. Yeah. But I know this, that I know this happened. And it was real. And you don't hide something like that for 20 years. Because, it's fear of ridicule. And
Yes.
And that's wrong. That's wrong.
Yes.
We can't find anything out. And so much of what we see in the sky, Joe, is not what we think. Yeah, on my team, I've got Mark D'Antonio, MUFON's imaging and chief imaging analyst.
Is he out of North Carolina?
Nah, he's
okay. There was somebody out.
He's a Connecticut Yankee.
Okay, there was a man over in Greensboro. I went to a conference a couple years ago over in Greensboro, and with MUFON out there, and got to meet a lot of people. I actually, me and Martin Willis from Podcast UFO actually sat on a back table and just kind of chilled out for a while, and Antonio Rojas was there doing his interviews with everybody, and Timothy Good was there, and a few other folks, but I can't rattle them off the top of my head, but yeah, it was it's fun listening or getting in touch with the local folks that actually do the research often and get in there, and that's what I like to tell people is I don't have delusions of researching grandeur, going on. I'm more of just straight host, more in the media end of it. Just get the stories out. I don't have aspirations to be the researcher rock star thing. Just an outlet.
We talk about this a lot. That if you're really serious about this, you don't want to be. Now, don't get me wrong. I have no problem with Giorgio and some of the others. They have found their niche.
Oh yeah.
But I am into the science of this, and I want to find out who were these folks that visited me that night. Who, in other words,
with absolute impunity too.
Right.
Came and went as they pleased.
That's it. This is why we need to find out what, who, and where these folks are, and what they're about, because we really don't know. We really have no idea who they are, where they came from, what they're doing here. But we know over so many years there is something entering our airspace, our oceans, and even our reality. Because this many people don't lie. This many people are not hallucinating. There is something there, and people talk about the military all the time. Well, why can't they do something? And I have postulated this to them. Well, maybe they don't know any more than we do. They might know a lot, but I tell them, you have to understand that this would be... A lot of people, they say, oh, we're ready for disclosure, we're ready. Are we? Are we? You've been seeing CGI. You've been seeing CGI on movies. Now, what you going to do if something that's not human comes walking up to you in real life? See, I don't have any memory of seeing any entities. I really don't.
You and me both.
But I know something happened to me. And why would I lose that much time? But some people have nightmarish memories. but not me.
Yes.
Maybe I didn't fight them or something. Maybe they just like me because I have a good personality. I don't know. Hey, Karen, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the thing...
Well, you know what I kind of think is that during these contacts, I believe that, any outside entity from Earth coming here and seeing us, I try to keep us as humans as basic as possible. In saying that, I like to consider us shaven apes in the interaction. Okay, we're definitely the inferior in ways, but we're superior in ways. With you, it seems like they were able to suppress the fight or flight.
They did.
But you still had the thoughts, and that's where the sound and the light manipulation comes in on you, and they learned, or they knew at least, okay, this is how we approach this person.
Sure.
Just like a case file's taken out
so.
everywhere else. We've all got our own file.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Joe.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Because you hear a lot about men that have had these abductions.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them have been, have been some women, but a lot of the men have just been really, really, really terrified and have these horrible... It could be because the male instinct is to fight, to be combative. Something grabs you, man.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Who really knows? Like you said, they could have us kind of pegged out. But this is what I have thought about for years and years and years. How do we know that they didn't have us spotted out way before the encounter? And they kind of know. They kind of know. Because why would... I mean, I go out to check on some horses, and there this thing is. And it settles over. Maybe the whole thing was kind of a decoy to get me out. I don't know. I really don't know. All I know is, as we say, I know what I saw.
Yep.
And it was big.
Now, no markings, nothing like that, scarring, anything like that that you've noticed or anything?
No.
Me either, really.
And my behind wasn't sore.
Right?
I don't think they broke it. I don't know. I'm just saying that whatever it was, it was like I was on some kind of trip or something. Woo! And I think they have that ability. So we don't know. I mean, we could be dealing, like we talk about MUFON, we could be dealing with a assorted bunch. We don't know. Some could be kind of creepy. I kind of think the Grace, or I'm kind of like Mark says, I think they could be kind of like biological drones. They don't seem to have too much emotion. From what I've read, but we don't know. We just don't know. That's it. It's the unknown. But I still believe that the sound and the lights had something to do with it. And I will tell you this. After that experience, I have never had a seizure in my life, okay? Never.
Mm-hmm.
A few years after that, I would go in a place. I was at my mom's, and I just passed out. She said, "Oh, it was horrible." I just fell out into a seizure.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything till I woke up in the ER down here in Franklin County, and they didn't know what was wrong. So, and then later on, in a store. This happened several times. And then I finally put it together. It was flashing fluorescent lights.
Yes.
I was not too long ago, I was in a Kmart. I noticed a flashing fluorescent light, and I started feeling strange, and I said, I got to get out of here. That's it. That's the common denominator. Now, if you have been subjected to some kind of control, we know that children that used to play Pokemon would have seizures from the light. It's kind of what they call a epileptic focus. I don't know. But the thing about it is, I never had that in my life. Never. Had never fainted. Had never had a seizure. I was not epileptic. They ran all the tests, the EEGs, everything. There was nothing wrong with me. But I figured this out. And see, my mom, that day that I fell out, I got real hungry. I walked in her kitchen, and my mother is visually impaired, so she had these huge fluorescent lights in her kitchen. And one needed its ballast replaced, and it was doing all this weird stuff.
Yep.
And that's the last thing I remember. And so I had put it together, and I think it could be a side effect, an after effect about the lights. I think that, I believe that the lights, they don't need lights, Joe, to navigate, because this thing was almost invisible when it appeared. They don't need that. Why did it come on with these lights? And so many, most reports, they're silent. What was this humming thing about? So you got a combination there, and you don't know what you're really dealing with. And these folks could be thousands and thousands of years ahead of us. Like I said, we don't even know where they're from. They could be from another planet. They're talk about, we talk about pocket universes now. There's so much, we just don't know. I tell people down here, because I'm in Mississippi, I tell people, you talk about heaven. Well, where do you think that is? Well, it wouldn't be way out there in space. It would be, you just walk over somewhere. And then they start kind of getting it, because it's kind of still an iffy subject down here in the Bible Belt. Oh, yeah.
I had a guest a very long time ago, Mark Huneman, who is I'd guess it'd be considered fundamental Christian opinion about ghosts, and saying that it's all demonic and it's just a trick of the devil and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely know what you're up against down here, myself over in Raleigh. So, it definitely is that. We're actually at the top of the hour here and have to take a little bit of a break, Karen. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And I just give a heads up to Joe there back at the mothership, as I like to call it, and we will be back for hour number 2 in the Mind Cemetery with Karen King, the administrator for the official MUFON UFO, the official MUFON Facebook page, my bad. I get it running back and forth every once in a while, and definitely go out there and join that page and get in on the conversation and see what the folks there are up to. And we will be back in about 8 minutes, I guess, 10:08, and we'll be back to talk about it, because I definitely have some more questions about the vibration and the light and all that kind of stuff, and the fluorescent stuff, because you are hitting on a lot of similarities with my story as well. So, it all runs together, and me and your daughter are practically the same age. We're probably off by 1 year. I'm 77.
She's 35. She's 35.
Yep, I'm 37, 8,
well, y'all
6,
are close
I guess.
Together.
Shoot, I don't remember.
You're close together.
I barely remember my own age anymore, but I just keep telling people I'm close to 40.
I'm just older than dirt.
There you go. All right, we'll go ahead and get out of here. We'll be back for the second hour, and we'll hit it.
Thank you.
Joe, take us away.
All righty.
And welcome back for hour number 2 here of the Mind Cemetery with guest Karen King, who is the admin over at the official MUFON Facebook page. Get out there and give it a like and a follow, and jump in the discussion there. Try not to add to the buffoonery, I guess, right? Is that what we're going with, Karen?
Right.
Keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
And you were sharing with us your story, your experience of a rectangular craft and a couple hours of missing time there. And like I was saying, you were hitting all the right things, especially with the fluorescent light mentioned, and the flickering, and how your reaction to it was seizures to have then, and I know that light that you're talking about. It's very bright yet soft white light.
Yeah.
And it seems like, at least in my experience, it seemed like it should have been like a lighthouse beacon. Like the world should have seen this thing.
Well,
but even though it was...
There were only 2 houses out there in the middle.
No, not just for you.
Yeah, right.
Mine. When it was between 2 houses, me and my neighbor's house, and I was like...
But it was just like, it was there, and it was bright. It was bright, but it was still... It was a focused light, and...
Yes, that's a good way to put it, too, because, like I was saying, it seemed like, mine should have been a lot brighter than it was, but it wasn't casting shadows, it wasn't, like, permeating all over the place. It was just so weird, and it was just a very weird white light that I rarely see matched or doubled, throughout my life from then, and I know I let you know, I figured it out. I'm 37, so and I'm in the same ballpark with your daughter. And that kind of time period of the early '90s is when the events were happening to me, and we definitely touched on the different approaches that were taken to you versus my experience, which I'll go ahead and talk to you about. But you discussed the vibration feeling and the light and the sound. Now, when you're talking about the vibrations and the sound, was it like the vibration, was there any kind of like static electricity type feel to it to you or anything like that, did it feel like, or was it straight audible?
It was kind of audible, but it was more or less of a feeling.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely think they're both used to coincide to confuse the senses. That's for sure. These things are used to confuse the hell out of us. And we hear now about sound technologies being used in like riot control and stuff like that, and you really get the feel of where it's kind of gone in the directions that humans have developed it, at least. It's definitely difficult to pin down a lot of these things because it is rooted in feeling. And when I told you about, or I was talking about the benefits and the shortcomings that the human shaven ape, the human monkey has, as I like to call ourselves.
Apes.
There you go. See, we're on the same page.
I see people used to when cell phones came out, and I would see people standing out in their yards and holding their cell phones up. I said, dear God, we're going to evolve into where we'll be back in the trees and we'll all have cell phones. But
trying to catch that signal.
No. Like I said, if you've got a species out here that can travel from wherever they're coming to here, and like I said before, we don't know. They could have a base. I mean, I know it sounds crazy. That on the dark side of the moon, we don't know, but they're getting in here somehow.
Yep.
And as I said before, the military, whatever they know or don't know, what are they going to tell people? Okay, we got these folks. We got the most powerful military in the world. We have a radar trap that it's all around the United States of America. And we can't do anything about this.
Can't do squat. The most advanced. And
that's going to really make people feel really better.
Right.
And that's, like I said, I mean,
Well, and that goes into play into the whole disclosure thing, like you were talking about. Are we ready for disclosure? Well, hell no. I mean, look at just what happens when we lose power. In some of these cities, or when the social structure breaks down.
I was a victim of Katrina too.
Yeah. Ooh.
I never believed. I never believed it would come that far inland.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm just about an hour and 20 minutes from New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And we just didn't. It tore my roof off. It was bad. So, and then the power was off a long time, and people were stripping the Walmart stores. And I saw how fast it degraded.
Yep. It goes back to that primal
yeah.
instincts, you know,
right.
And it's that fight or flight. Like I said, they,
right.
you know, when we were talking about how they must know us, you know, there's something else I'd like to ask you, and Joe Montaldo, who runs the network and does the producing here and patched us together, I also like to joke and call him Taliban Joe every once in a while, but anyway, they have, he does a lot of abduction research and stuff, and I was wondering if you would mind talking about maybe if you could tell us what eye color or blood type you had, because he does a blood type research study on that kind of thing.
Well, my eyes are green.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, okay, so my blood type is A positive, so.
Okay.
And
okay. Usually, I think he was shooting towards. You know, you hit on the green, okay, and I'm green-eyed as well. In his study and all that he's developed and he's talked about, basically green being a mutation that happened in the human genome, right? And the only thing that makes it different, that and the blood type mutation being different than any other kind of human mutation in our evolution, is that this one just showed up like 20,000 years ago,
mm-hmm.
or 50,000 years ago, somewhere in that ballpark. You know, and
sure.
we've been around for millions of years. You know, so in one form or another.
Sure.
So it really draws it to, okay, now what was the catalyst? What made it different? You know, what happened there? And there's a lot of, you know, conjecture on where we can go on to why, you know, the universal acceptor, I think it is. Not the universal donor, but the universal acceptor. And one of the things that would benefit a galaxy traversing species is to be as interchangeable with our parts as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
mm-hmm.
and so this may or may not be some sort of preparation to help push us along. But again, like I said, pure conjecture, and he's got the study and the numbers and all that stuff, and I'll let him discuss it because he knows better than me, and I'm sure I might have butchered it already. So, but that's the gist of it.
Well,
you know?
I've heard about this blood typing and the eye color thing, and I don't know. My dad was blue-eyed, my mom was brown-eyed, so, you know, I got the green eyes. Now, my brother has this grayish blue eyes. But
yes.
If you think about it, when we all came out of Africa, everybody had brown eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Scandinavian, you know, the people that moved north, all of a sudden there was a mutation. They
mm-hmm.
got blue eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you had the green-eyed thing. So, who knows? Who knows about that? I mean,
you want to know something weird about
I don't
eye
really
color.
know how that, you know. But the thing about, I don't know. I just don't know about why they would pick people with certain blood types or eyes, but
mm-hmm.
they might have a reason.
My grandmother actually had copper-colored eyes, and my mother had green as well.
I had a first cousin that passed away
mm-hmm.
a few years ago. Her eyes were really coppery-colored.
And can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
You or anyone else in your family, maybe your mother's side more prominently, any kind of intuitiveness, psychic ability type things to brush it with a broad stroke?
Yeah, kinda.
Okay.
Kinda. Not my mom. Not my mom. My mother is pretty rigid and straight up. My grandmother was, and some of my cousins are, and
mm-hmm.
my mother's sister was, and I am, and I've always said I don't know if it's psychic ability or we just pick up. We're sensitive people and pick up on
mm-hmm.
things. I don't know.
You do the thing where you call somebody that think they might be in trouble, or hey, I'm just thinking about you type thing. You ever have those calls go on when you're contacting loved ones, I guess?
I have this thing where people I kind of get close to, and I don't get too close to a lot of people. It's just the way I am, but it's like I'm in sync. It's kind of a synchronicity thing. Like, they'll say something, I'll say something. It's just that way.
That's the stuff then, Kara. Yeah, we're sometimes when I have guests on out of nowhere, and we start talking, and there's just so many things that put us in very similar situations. Like out of nowhere, you're talking about having a Great Dane, and like how were you supposed to know that I grew up with a Great Dane next door and all that kind of stuff? Just little things like that, and the stories being similar. I think there's definitely some purpose out there to us running into each other. Specifically us and, other guests that I have on that gravitating towards each other, basically, is what it is. I don't know if there's a hidden hand pushing us that way, or it's just, like you said, the synchronicity of the whole thing. And I know a lot of skeptics kind of write it off as, oh, it's just coincidence, and I don't. And that, and I think I'm going to touch on that real quick with you about my skepticism and all that kind of stuff. For me, I find it weird and odd that, like, in a lot of these UFO groups, because I don't go along with, I guess, like Majestic 12 or Dulce Underground Bases, or, I don't go along with these, sensational stories. People are like, well, you're just a skeptic and you don't know anything. And I'm like, well, I get it. I get it. We're on Facebook and we don't know who the hell each other is, and, all that kind of stuff. And, you don't know me from Adam, and you don't know that I have a show where I've talked about my experiences 20,000 times, and all that. But, I'm very much so in the camp of, something's going on, and I know it is, but, when I just don't go in on these fantastic stories.
I don't either.
They're just too good to be true,
I don't
either. That kind of stuff kills me, where they're like, oh, I hate being lumped in the skeptical category now, just because I question outrageous things.
You have to have some skepticism in this, because that's the only way to find the truth. This is what, I try to maintain a scientific view, because and there are some subjective things to this, but at the same time, we're not going to go into National Enquirer.
No.
Because I can't stand that stuff. And that's why I was basically agnostic, because I thought, Von Däniken, ancient aliens, like, come on, give the human species some credit here. But I don't like that stuff. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And then when people send, I can't. Well, everybody has the right to their opinion. I understand that. Sure. But no. I don't do all that sensationalism, because I think this is a physical phenomenon. And they have some sort of psi ability. It's just like I said, God knows how far ahead they are of us. And look at our technology, how it's growing. So, but no, I try to stick to the nuts and bolts, plain simple stuff. And when somebody tells me, oh my God, there's all these things in Dulce, and I said, you know what, right. It's probably where Dulce is where they stored a bunch of missiles, it's underground, and even Area 51, it is a place where our Air Force, and it started out with Lockheed, to develop top secret aircraft. What do you think you might see coming out of there? You remember when the stealth planes came out? Well, we really had no idea. Well, and I tell people, it's nobody's business, really. It's none of mine. I mean, that's the way the military looks at it. This is a matter of national security.
Oh, yeah.
So I just really, I just have a problem with thinking, we got all these aliens there and all this. Look, y'all have made his culture has made a joke out of that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it makes it easier to laugh at people that do step up, like you were saying, for that ridicule and stuff. And luckily I was always, weird enough and probably dumb enough to speak and talk about these things anyway. And it hasn't shied away any of my friends, and I'm lucky about that. And that was the point I made at that conference. I said, this is a very good conference, the UAP conference over in Greensboro. That was a couple years ago now. I said, one thing you need to do when you come to this conference, since it wasn't full of a bunch of woo-woo, tell the story that it was actually not full of a bunch of woo-woo when you get home, and feel free to discuss these things with people in your life, and let them know about it, and don't be afraid of it, and get some understanding rolling in.
Well, that's the way I feel now. I mean, nobody should have to hold something in for 20 years. That was a burden. It was a burden. And my daughter would ask me every once in a while, Mom, what happened that night? Well, I don't want to talk about it. Well, finally, when I did talk about it, and now, where I am now, I will talk about it freely. And I really don't give a, what people think.
Yep.
I mean, people shouldn't, look, you got hoaxers. You got people that might not be truthful, but when you have thousands and thousands of people that talk about these close-up experiences, as I said before, everybody's not lying.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if you had, since that encounter, any more like it, or if you had any paranormal experiences start popping up.
Well,
or just unexplained. Let's just call it that. Right?
Sure.
It may not be paranormal.
Okay. Before all this happened, my daughter and I had found this house in Ripley. And the owner wanted to do this rent to own. Oh my God, this is wonderful.
Sure.
And it was built back in, I reckon, the early 1800s. Big red brick house, and it was pretty, and it had this long foyer. Now I can tell you, my daughter she would stand behind me on this because she was even younger then. So I thought, well, this is great. And I knew how to do, I told the man, I said, I'll fix it up, man. I'm good at painting and patching and everything.
Sure.
And the master bedroom, this is so funny. Because I make a joke about it now. When you go in a master bedroom and there's all kind of slide locks and everything on the inside, that means somebody might be trying to keep something out.
Yeah.
But I remember the first few days I was working in the house and I was painting the baseboards. It was like I could hear these people talking like a big crowd, like a cocktail party or something. And I'm thinking, so I got up and went outside on the porch to see if anybody was out there.
Yeah.
And there was nobody, so I went back inside. Nothing. And, this was a big old house. Big house. Like I said, the master bedroom was gigantic. And it had a bathroom off to the side. But, so we moved in. I got it looking really great. And there was this, I don't know, there was this feeling, and I have never been afraid of the dark in my life. Never. Never been scared of it. My dad always told me, if they can't see you, I mean, if you can't see them, they can't see you. I just never was afraid of stuff like that. And this house, it got to where I hated to go into it. I hated to go into it. When you would walk through the kitchen, you would feel this horrible oppressed and depressed feeling. It was just, it was like something weighing on you. And I would think, maybe I'm just kind of imagining this because it's an old house and all that. But it was bad. It just, I call them now unfriendly houses. Even my brother, who is pretty much a skeptic of all this stuff, he has even said, he's a building contractor, and he has said, I have been in houses that were unfriendly. It's like they don't want you there. Yeah. And this house was that way. So after we lived there, my daughter had her room, I had mine, and you could hear boots coming down the hall, like clunk, clunk, clunk. She would run in my room. We would get up in the bed together and lock the doors. Well, like I said, there's all of these locks on there, so you knew somebody was trying to keep something out. So I thought, this just kind of went on and on and on. And so a friend of mine had come over, and they were outside, and they screamed that they said that they heard a scream. They heard me screaming inside. And I said, no. I haven't said anything. Oh, no. Yeah. And I finally, believe it or not, there was a psychologist that lived down the road. And he was a ghost hunter. He had all that equipment and everything. And somebody told me about him. And I went over to his house. I said, I want to know about this house. What do you know about this house? He said, I'm going to tell you about that house. He said, nobody can live there. Nobody can live there. He said, the man, Mr. Ratcliffe, that tried to sell it to me, he said he's tried to sell that house for years. He said nobody can stay in it over 6 to 8 months. So, there you go.
Now, yeah, when my experience, and it came with the fight or flight feelings, the terror, the sheer terror. I have no other way to put it. That was scary.
That was scary. Now, that was scary. That was a lot scarier than seeing... That was scary.
I had, what I had was, it was around that time, early 90s, when I would wake up, legs straight, arms straight to the side in bed, and I would have the traditional sleep paralysis, what everybody would claim, but off to the side in one of my windows in my bedroom that would be looking at the neighbor's house, and literally probably 20 feet, tops between the houses, and there would be that white light ball, and it would be big. It would be probably, the size of an old VW Bug, around, if you could just turn that into a ball, right? It's something like that with that white light, and it would be on the ground, and it would be floating up then, and then once it got about rooftop range, boom, gone altogether. No more light, casting shadows and all that. And I remember multiple times I would be, fighting it, screaming and not being able to scream, and then all of a sudden when the light's gone, then I would be like released, and I could be yelling, and I'm yelling, Mom, and Dad, and all that kind of stuff, and then there was only one time I could remember that I would be, I would have that paralysis that, and it must have been one of the last times or the last time, and I was looking out the window, and of course I can only move my eyeballs that way, right? So I'm looking kind of out the corner of my eye and looking over, and it goes away, and I thought to myself, well, everybody in the neighborhood must have saw that, so I'm just going to go back to sleep. Right. And that was the other weird aspect of all the other times when I'd be yelling for somebody. Within like 30 seconds, I'm right back out like nothing happened. And I'm like, well, that's just not normal either. You know, how do I go from sheer terror of panic to right back out to sleep like nothing happened? Right. And I think that comes along, and like you, I've never seen a being of any kind, shape, or form. You know, none of that.
Not that I remember. Not in my consciousness. Yeah. You know, and exactly. I said, I don't want to go into any kind of hypnotic regression because you don't know if they could dig up stuff and kind of influence you.
Exactly.
So it's best if I had a great experience and it was pleasant, leave it at that.
And that's something where I was saying about when it comes to the family tree and the way they knew how to handle you and everything that make it smooth on them, because that's what it's all about. It would be like any kind of tracking team coming to recover an animal. You were doing all you can to get your ducks in a row and say, okay, now we've got subject, here we go, we got Chip coming up here, and history says, his mom and his grandma and that family line there, man, they were a son of a bitch to deal with, so we learned dearly that it's probably best if we just paralyzed them and wiped their memory and moved on, because God knows we can't let this shaven ape loose around us because he's damn near 3 bills and he can wreck us pretty quick, if we're the, 3-foot alien, gray.
And that's why I think that they have something, because every description, they're kind of fragile looking. And look at us.
Yep.
I'm pretty tiny myself. I'm like 5'3", weigh about 125 pounds. So,
okay.
But at the same time, you get something that fragile, it's kind of like an insect. You snap them.
Yep.
I think they have a way, a passive way, to subdue us. And of course, I think that there might be some people that fight them and get combative, and but they
reestablish protocol real quick.
Right, they know how to they know how to deal with it. They know how to deal with it, and because they know what we are like, we're savages. Still, we're savages. We can look around the world. I mean,
yes,
I
like to give the example of just see what happens when you introduce fire in a room of people.
Right.
Just watch how monkey brain takes over.
Hey,
half the people are going to run in a circle.
My first old computer, one of those 365 things you put the floppy disk in, when I fired it up, I was like a caveman. Ooh.
Right.
So, we still have so many primal things going. And I think that whatever these people are, they're advanced, and they kind of keep us at arm's length. I would.
Yeah.
Look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing right now. Look at this mess that's going on right now. And I don't want to get into any kind of politics or anything. I'm just saying.
Sure. It's easy to see how bad we could be to each other.
That's right. And what we do to children, what we do to small animals, it's just horrific. It's nasty. It's
no wonder they want to keep us on this rock.
I don't blame them.
And once we start spreading that humanity, so-called, to other planets, it could go bad real quick.
I have to believe that, for the most part, people are good, because if they weren't, we would have wiped each other off the map a long time ago. But you still have this faction that is real savage. And I still believe that, oh my God, what if they just made a big landing? I don't think it would go over well.
Not at all.
They would be surrounded. And they understand that, I think. I think they understand that. But
yeah, that's the answer to the question as to why they don't land on the lawn.
Right,
right
and they're
there.
not going to land on the White House lawn.
They've seen what happens.
Jump the fence, so.
Yeah, I think they've seen Frankenstein, and they've seen how that happens.
The angry villagers with their torches and pitchforks. But
Here they come.
But the thing about it is, all I can say is this. There have been people that have abduction experiences that were terrified. I don't know what happened to me. I do believe there was a reason for that missing time. But I just felt good. I just felt really great.
It's the way to handle it. There you go.
And I thought, oh my God, I have seen something. And my life has always been kind of an Indiana Jones-like thing. Oh.
Yeah.
And, it is. I've always been a little bit bigger than life, and a lot of people, I'm kind of hard to contain at times. I do have a friend that does know how to contain it very well because they just know how to. But at the same time, that was just like, oh my God, what was that? You know, how many people have seen something like this? Because I have that intellectual curiosity.
Yep.
It will always, my dad ingrained that into me. He always said, learn something new every day. Learn a bunch of new things every day. Always learn something that you were ignorant about yesterday. And so that's the way I am. And I don't know who they are, where they are coming from. I don't know. But they're here. They're here. I believe that. I believe they're here.
Has your daughter ever expressed any or told you about any experiences of her own?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
And now get this. Get this. When she was young, I guess about first grade or so, 5 or 6, she used to tell me, and you know how kids have imaginary friends, that she would be talking in her room, and I'd say, who are you talking to? She said, the man in the big black hat. I said, say what? She said, yeah, there's a man in a big black hat that talks. She said, I like him a lot. She said, and she would go on and on and on about this, and I like I said, I thought, this is imaginary friend stuff.
Yeah.
Well, she would go into detail about these conversations, and she was pretty precocious like I was at that age. Pretty well verbalizing. And I got a little disturbed. I thought, oh my God. And she would tell me that this man in the big black hat, she said, Mom, he tells me things. And then she that kind of passed. Now, it's 2006 or 7. I'm rummaging through the internet, and I find out about the black hat man. This is kind of a common phenomenon. And I thought, oh my God, the descriptions of the hat man matched exactly.
Nailing it. Yep.
It nailed
Nailing it.
And she and I have talked about that. I sent her everything I could find on it, and she said, "That was the way he was." And I was like, oh, and it just that was strange. That was really strange, and I just wonder sometimes if these entities that we think are spirits or ghosts or whatever, they could be a form of these entities. They could be a form of them.
Yep.
But I know this. I know my daughter, she's really straight up. And she's on our MUFON page. And but she's a banker for Wells Fargo, so a loan officer and all that. So she's pretty straight up. But she's always said, I believe you, Mom. I believe you. And she said, because, I've had my own experiences. And years ago, when she and her ex-husband were living in Tupelo, she said they were having a cookout, and it was down a hill, from their house. And she said they all heard this robotic voice, like she said it was like a female voice, and it says, I would like to talk to you. I would like to talk to you. And she said it kept getting closer and closer. And she said she and her ex and the friends kind of thought, what? But before that, they had seen a big light in the front yard. And they thought somebody had pulled into their driveway. And she said then the light went off, and they thought, oh, well, maybe somebody turned around, got on the wrong way or everything. But she said that was so strange. She said, Mom, that was really bizarre. She said it was like, I don't know, she said it was a real metallic voice. Said, I would like to talk to you. I would like to talk to you. And she said, and then she said they all went in the shed and slammed the door and locked it. So that was strange. And that's the only two things Lindy's ever told me that were kind of weird on that order.
I had about the same time as these incidences, and I don't know, I stretch to call it an abduction because, like I said, I don't have any memory of going in the ship and out of ship or through a wall or any of that stuff. So I guess the experience, I remember also, watching TV. We had one of the old school box TV, console TVs that sat on the ground, and I'm sitting there laying down watching TV, and I see out of the corner of my eye, best way to describe it for everybody is if you've seen Star Wars and the ghosts of the Jedis and a hologram or whatever there you go. That's pretty much how it looked, and it was full body, and it was of a man, big dude, bald head, big nose, overalls, looking like a farmer, right?
Right.
And he looks down the hall at me, and then he turns and he looks at the wall, right, of the hall. And then he turns and goes back down the hallway, and it's gone. And I didn't jump, I didn't run, I didn't get scared, I didn't, pee myself, none of that. I was just like, okay, I guess that happened, and moved on, right? And I went on maybe a year later or so, and I was telling my grandma with my mom there because, my mom's always been into UFO, paranormal shows, documentaries, movies, horror stories, all that kind of stuff. So, I'd been well versed in that kind of stuff from her, and because sometimes she'd pull the old, come watch this with me because it scares the hell out of me, and I'm like, well, I'm just a kid, come on here. But I came along for the ride anyway. But I'm telling the story, and my grandma was like, that's your grandfather. And I looked at a picture, and there he is in the overalls doing the farmer thing.
Wow.
And there it is. And I was like, and here's what's even more weird about that story, Karen. At the time, on that wall, there was nothing there. Later on down the road, there was all my football pictures and all the, hurrah and accolades and all that kind of stuff was on that wall. And that wasn't there at that time. Mm-hmm. So not only was this time and space kind of thing, but it was a paranormal thing. It was just weird that aspect of it was introduced to it because, like I said, at the time it didn't, surprise me as to why, and then, why are you looking at that wall right now? There's nothing there. And then years later, and boom, there it is, the wall of fame, so to speak. And that's why he's there looking at it and taking a look at me, and away he goes. And that was it. Most recently, when my son turned 1 in our current house that we're in, I had gone a very long time, from about the time I moved out of the house and went to college, which was in 95, to 2011, nothing UFO related, nothing, right? I remember, or actually, I'm sorry, The incident that happened when he turned 1, or around his first birthday, I remember being, and I was awake and conscious for this, but again, unable to really do anything willfully, being put back into bed. And it would have been like being lowered down, laying flat down onto the bed, where, like if I was a puppet, like a marionette or something, being lowered back down. One leg, left arm, right arm, everything kind of floating down one at a time as I lay. And I remember fixating at the door and looking that direction, but not being able to see beyond the edge of the bed. It was that dark blackout that you were describing with your sighting. And I had the feeling that something was watching me, watching this happen, like a supervisor type thing was going on. And again, I go back to bed like nothing happened. Mm-hmm. When I know me, and I know what happens when this monkey's threatened, and I go, I turn down, I turn up, let's put it that way, I'm good, I'm ready to go here. And it was just, it was weird that happened again, and I just went right back to bed, and I can't help but think that I interrupted something, you don't
know.
Yeah, or something like that, or yeah, exactly. I just don't know. I like to think, and that's what I've told many other experiencers. My own macho ego stupidity gets in the way and says, "Okay, well, I tried to get up and intervene," or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody would like to think that, I guess, that you would try to do something, if you're being taken against your will. But who knows if that's exactly what happened? But that happened. And then nothing, I've had nothing. I had a second child. She's 20 months now, and I've had nothing with her, and no experience around a birthday, no follow-ups with him. And there was only one time that I remember carrying my son, and he was, this is around that 1 year, 2 year mark. In that ballpark, he would point up to a point above his door, and like when I was walking in with him, he would grip onto me real hard and latch onto me like he was scared to death of something. And I thought, whoa, this is different. He's never done this, Right. And this was like after that thing. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this had something to do with it here. This is what scared the hell out of him for a minute, but. Again, I don't know for sure. I can't, tie anything together concretely, of course, Recently, as I'd say it was 2 weeks ago now, I put a post up on a Facebook page in Inspire, which is a paranormal meetup group here in Raleigh, and I've done some paranormal investigations with them at houses.
So you're in North Carolina?
Yes.
My daughter's in Hudson.
Hudson?
Yeah. That's down below Carolina? Asheville.
Oh, okay. I see. Nice. That's a nice area, Asheville.
It's beautiful.
Actually,
it's beautiful.
I love it out there. But I was upstairs, and this is weird because it really conflicts with me and like religious beliefs. Because I believe I at least I didn't, up until this happened. I was always in the camp that animals don't have a soul. Beasts of burden, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Put here for us to use. Okay, so I was every time I heard doggy heaven and cat heaven, I'm like, get out of here.
Right.
This thing ain't going anywhere. It's just an animal.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard like a little dog bark in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
It was like it was like that. And I have to do my barking impersonations, right? It was just a little.
Sure.
Kind of thing. And I knew it was a little dog sound, and I grew up with a little dog, but this wasn't that little dog, And I was like, and this is around 4 in the morning, 4 to 5 in the morning. I'm a night owl, I'm up all night damn near, and, sleeping issues and all that kind of stuff. But, it happened around then, and the next day I was telling my wife, Nicole, I was like, hey, And she's been to some of these investigations, right, that we've done, the paranormal investigations, and we've been in the same room. And I consider her not a skeptic, but a denialist, okay? Because, and I think there's a lot of denialists out there posing as skeptics, because if they let anything in, it blows their, paradigm of life
I know
off
all
its
about
access.
that. My partner is just you don't even talk about this stuff.
Yep, and she's that way. And I was like, hey, I heard a little dog bark in the hallway. I was like, have you ever heard this dog before? And she's like, yeah, I've heard it 3 times. And I was like, what? I was like, you've heard this thing before? She's like, I didn't want to tell you, and I didn't want to admit it either. She's like, I've heard its footsteps walking in the hall, and upstairs hallway. And I've heard it when she was in the bathroom. She said she heard it walking around out there. She's heard the jingle of the collar and the tags, and she's heard the bark. So she's heard like 3 different noises. I was like, well, I heard the bark. And she's like, yeah. I was like, well, how long has this happened? She says, about 1.5 years it's been going on. I was like, my God. So now... so I posted that on the Inspire page. I said, I had something pop up here, and, you all know my skeptic wife, and she pretty much said, yeah, I heard it too, So, I'd been putting out voice recorders out in the hallway now a couple times a week and seeing if I can catch something. Of course, I don't keep up with it as regularly as I can, unfortunately, but, I do throw the recorder out there to try to hear something, but man, this was clear as day. You would think he really was sitting there. And now when it comes time, like if I stay up late, I'm thinking, I need to go to bed because I don't want to hear this. I don't want to risk it or anything. I don't want to get scared, and hear this thing. And I don't know why the thought of this dog scares me. I don't know. It just does.
Well, you know why? Because you had already thought to yourself, they don't have a soul. And and of course, I've always known all animals do. That's never been a problem with me. I like animals basically better than I like people. Well, I love people. I really do, but not up close and personal at times. But the thing about it is, I've had a lot of animals, and I've interacted with them on a very close, and like horses and dogs and cats, and I love my cats. And people say, well, cats don't have personality. I say, oh, yeah, they do. Oh, yeah, I've got 3.
Oh, yeah.
And each one is different. I've told you, going back to that old house I had, that we could hear the footsteps, everything. And then the man that I talked to, the psychologist that was also a ghost hunter, he showed me, he played for me recordings of a barking dog. And he said, and that was at a house not too far. He said he had seen them. His wife had seen them. They were Scotties.
Oh, wow.
And he said they would kind of come out from under an azalea bush and bark.
Huh.
And, you hear about this kind of stuff all the time. But, yeah, that would be kind of, like you said, if you'd ever thought about an animal having a soul, and you thought, well, they're not like us. Well, I think they are just like us. I mean, we're animals too.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely made me reconsider.
We're just, and we've been brought up. Hey, I came from the Bible Belt. I'm a Methodist. We're the liberal bunch, We can kind of do what we want to. But the thing about it is, we have to rethink about what life's about. That's just like the E.T. thing. I mean, I tell people, I don't have a problem with believing that we're not the only ones out there. I have no problem with that. Because look at this. We know now there are more planets than stars. There's got to be somebody else out there. And there's these great mysteries. And like you said about the animals. Now, it's just, here I go again. We just don't know. But I do believe this. I believe that we're all connected. We're all made out of the same stuff. We all came from here we go. We're all stardust. Let's go back to the hippie day. Well, we are. We are.
Yeah.
We're, and if there any other form of life, how it evolved, it did it according to its environment. Look at these worms that come out of this stuff, these volcanic vents down in the ocean and stuff.
Yeah.
but as far as animals, they seem to have a sense that's even greater than ours. It's just greater.
It is. That's for sure.
Let me give you an example. My mom.
Karen, I'm sorry, but we're up against it here, and we're running late. We got to do this again, though, because we got too much in common here.
I think we do, and this has been great. I really have enjoyed it.
Oh, too much synchronicity going on that brought us together, Karen.
Hey, everybody that I contact, that I feel them out, and if you get with me, you're going to find some synchronicity. I guarantee you.
Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find the Facebook page.
Okay, go to the official MUFON Facebook page on Facebook. It's called the official MUFON Facebook page. And
right, there's many imposters.
And yes, and I root those out too. This is the one. But I do want to give a shout out, because since I'm here, to my team, to Jessica, to John, to Jason, to Mark, to Angelo, and of course Steve and Mark. They're my, well, Steve, he's big, he's boss hog. But I have to give them kudos. They helped me out so much. It's a big job. It's a big job, and I couldn't do it without them. And so I'll say good night. We'll do this again.
Fantastic. Thank you, Karen. And we'll be in touch, and we'll do it again, and we'll wrap it up tonight. And thank you for listening, everybody. And sorry about running a little bit late there, Joe. I know there's some hot slots somewhere that you got to hit there in the bayou. So
all righty.
We'll call it a night. And thank you very much again for tuning in, everybody. This will be up on SoundCloud.com/UPRN, and I'll go ahead and pump it out there this week so everybody will see it, and they'll be able to listen in on their own in the future. Good night, everybody, and be safe.